All right, welcome back to part two of our discussion of Python lists. Last time we used a for loop to look through a list and print out each element in a list. We also used a specific index of a list to access the 0 position, the 1 position. And here we've got a list called days, and just as a review, we can print out days 0 for Sunday. And we can print out days 1 for Monday. And the index of each one of these starts with 0. So this is 0, this is 1, position 2, position 3, position 4, 5, and 6. There's 7 items in the list, but the positions run from 0 through 6. And we looked at that in the last video. Now it's interesting that we can print Sunday like this. We can also add a colon. Now this is a colon in Python, just like Excel, represents a range. So now when we run this, it's going to do exactly the same thing, except that we're getting a range. It just so happens we're getting a range of 1. So it starts at 0. These are positions, the numbers, what some call subscripts, in brackets, are positions. And just for clarity, we'll comment this right here. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't know if we need this or not, but I would hate to lose 1 or 2 people just because this isn't clearly documented like the last video. So here we have, let's take this and expand this on out a little bit so you can see what's going on. And so now we've got, the starts at position 0, and it includes 1, up to, but not including 2. So 1, I mean, the first one here is inclusive. The second one is not inclusive. And that's interesting. So think inclusive, not inclusive. So the 0 includes position 0 and everything up to position 2. That's why Sunday and Monday print. We can keep going. We can say 3. And now it will include up to Tuesday. And 4. And we can keep going like that. Now another thing that we can do is we can say, rather than printing this like this, actually let me come back here and just comment this out. We'll keep the text but comment it out so it doesn't print. We can say, make me a new list that has, 2 and 5, 2 to 5. Now what's this going to list? What is this going to print? Think about that. What will middays contain if we take from position 2 to position 5? We talked about the first position being inclusive, so it's going to take Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, but it won't take Friday because the last one is not inclusive. It goes up to the 5th position. So let's print this out. And by the way, middays is a list because it's the days list will return a list of smaller, days from the cross section that we're choosing. And so you see here Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, just like we talked about. What if we increase it on up to 7? Actually, there is no position 7, but let's see what it'll do anyway. It won't go any further. Let's keep trying different things. See? Now, and now it should only go to Friday because it's up to, but not including. This is not inclusive on that second index. So I think that's kind of interesting. Another interesting thing about Python and lists, and these same rules apply to strings as well, is that what do you think let's see, what's the best way to do it? Maybe we'll just comment this out for a moment. And we will say days -1. Let's run this. It should pull Saturday, and it does. Because remember, Saturday is position 6, but if we go to -1, negative numbers really aren't represented here. The idea, though, is that if you can imagine an arrow coming back around to the number 6, that's sort of, it's maybe difficult to conceptualize. And if we enter a -2, it's going to pull Friday. It's going to keep working backwards. It's interesting. Occasionally this is useful, not always. And now let's look at some other things we can do with lists. Let's take maybe a fruit list and add, I don't know, let's add some strings to it. Apple, orange, grapes. It's going to complain because interestingly, in PyCharm, if you highlight something like this with your mouse and then press 1 quotation marks, it'll surround it with quotation marks. PyCharm is a pretty smart IDE. I like it. So if we say grapes in fruit, so notice I have quotation marks around grapes. It is a string. It's not a part of the list we just created. I'm going to put print, I found it. So I'm looking through this list called fruit, searching for grapes. If grapes is in fruit, print, I found it. I mean, this code reads just like standard English almost. And sure enough, it says, hey, I found it. Now, what if we do this? Is that in the list? No. Will it find it? No, nothing prints. Why doesn't it say it didn't find it? Because we didn't tell it to. We'd have to say else. Did not find it. Right? So that's interesting. This syntax here, we can say if something is in something else. Now, let's say that these were instead 1, 5, 7, 9, 11, and numbers. Maybe we're missing one in there somewhere. Maybe more. I don't know. I didn't really think through that very much, but let's say if 3 is in odd numbers, I found it. If not, I didn't. So let's run this. 13, not in there, so it shouldn't find it, right? And it does not. Pretty interesting syntax. Now, what about, let's go back here. Let me just undo these changes back to the fruit idea. If we comment this out for a moment, keeping our fruit list though, we can do some other interesting things with lists. We can append something to the list. We can say, I want to add a pineapple to the list. And now if we print the list, fruit, I'm not going to iterate through the list and print all that way. I'm just going to print it all on one line. I'm going to print a representation of the list itself in comma delimited format. You see it added it to it at the end. Isn't that cool? So we can also do fruit.remove. And you see how the dot notation, right? I can append, remove. If you're wondering where I'm getting these from, and there's a lot I'm not even going to go over. There's too many. But these are your options, and generally with a good IDE like PyCharm, you can find your available methods that you can call, functions that you can call by pressing the dot button. So in this case, we have to do it anyway to go ahead and type append. And actually, we're doing remove now, right? So let's remove what we just added. Okay, so print fruit again. Let's see what this gives us. So we added it, there it is. We took it away, there it is. So now we've kind of brought it back full circle. This list is the same as what we started with. What about this? We can say, we'll just comment this out here. What if we say fruit insert, and let's put position 2 here. So we're inserting at a position. Got overwrite mode on my keyboard here. There we go. We're inserting at a specific position. We already talked about positions up here. We talked about the last video too, position 1, 0, 1, and 2, and so forth. So before we do this, let's go ahead and print fruit. Remember, fruit is, we haven't changed it. We commented all this out, so none of this code is executing. This is our fruit list. We're going to print our fruit list here, and then we're just going to print it again to show the difference after we make this change. And you can see how pineapple was inserted just before position 2. So this is position 0, position 1, and this was position 2, and pineapple went in just before that. What happens, you say? What happens if we just do insert like this? If we run this, we'll get a screenshot here before and after. Whoops. I'm sorry, I got that mixed up with another language. I think we have to have 2 arguments. It says arguments, it means input here. Yeah, I'm thinking of another language. We'll put in 0. That's what I was trying to do, is get in the first position. Some other languages, you don't have to do this. It'll automatically insert it in the first position. And we can do this and put this in any position that we wanted. That might be handy if you wanted to have it in a certain order. And speaking of a certain order, let's go ahead and comment this line out. Delete it, in fact. And let's see, pineapple's in there. That's good. We're printing it. Let's just comment all of this out, I guess. And I'm going to comment this out as well and bring this down here so we don't have to struggle to look at it on the screen. Let's say fruit. Speaking of changing the ordering, let's sort fruit. So you see our list right here. And let's print fruit. Let's print it before and after. So here it is before, and here it is after. It alphabetized it, sorted it. And there's other things you can do with sort as well. You can sort, you can reverse sort basically. You can sort by ascending or descending. This is ascending here. It's going from the lower part of the alphabet to the upper. So let's look at another example here. Let's take fruit dot reverse. What do you think this does? We're going to print it, and then we're going to reverse it and then print it again. And sorry, I forgot the function call here. It has to have the open and close brackets to call the function. Now it'll make more sense. And you can see that it reversed it. Before we sorted it, now we are reversing it. Apple was at the beginning, now apple's at the end. Banana was at the end, now it's at the beginning. So there's others as well. Remember I showed you how to go in here and play around with other options that we have. Now let's take a look at a couple of other things. Let's see. Let me delete this, comment all of this, because I think we're done with our fruit example. Let me think here. Okay, so what's another good example? Let's see. Maybe something like this. We can say, let's look at maybe a grade type of scenario. Let's say test scores equals, so these are scores on a test. You guys can relate to that, right? Test scores, 98, 100, 57, 83, 19, and 99. I think it's just kind of a nice looking, and that should be equals. All right. And then let's say our total scores are 0 for now. So this is our list. We're familiar with lists now, hopefully. So let's go through our list. Let's iterate through our list and let's total up our scores. We can plus score. In this way, we can total up all of everything, the total score, the total of all the scores, like this. That's pretty interesting. We can also do this, get the length and average it out to produce an average, because length will get the number of elements in this list. So if we do this and run it, 64 is our average, right? We put another 100 in here, the average should change, and it does. Interestingly, we can also do something kind of cool with this list called test scores. We can go right here on test scores and say print, show me the minimum test score, right? So it's going to pull the minimum value from this list. We can run this, and 18. That looks right. I don't see anything lower. 19 is one higher, but not lower. What about max? That's min. What about the maximum score? Maximum score should be 100, right? We have 200s, 100s in there. Change it to 91, 93. Well, 3 works too. That would be a bad day if you scored a 3 on the test. And now you see the high is 99. So these are some pretty handy tools, min and max. I think that's very handy. There's many times where you want to find the minimum and the maximum of values in a list. Let me comment this out and comment this out. We can also use a list in conjunction with a function. We can say, let's build us a, let's look at a function called list builder, and it's going to take in an integer called length, and it's going to generate a list for us. And we're going to say for I in range length, so length could be 5 or 6 or whatever the calling function passes in, and say number. We're going to take a input from the keyboard here. We're going to say enter a number like this, and see, I'm missing a parentheses. I am. And then we can say numbers. I'm going to append the number the user entered. Let's see, did I make a mistake here? Yeah, I think that should be called numbers. That makes more sense because there's more than one number, so it should be plural. And let's see, append, don't need a dot there. And then let's return numbers to the calling, right, to the calling function. And then let's see, we'll say print list builder. And I'll tell you what, let's make this simpler. Let's say returned list equals list builder. We can do it more concisely, but I don't want to lose anyone here. We can then print the returned list. So what we're doing here, okay, so this is a function named list builder. It accepts a parameter that is an integer. And in this function, we're going to make a list, and we're going to take we're going to ask the user to enter a number. And we're going to keep asking the user 5 times in this case, because we're passing 5 into this. So it's going to loop 5 times, take a number from me, the user, 5 times. And each time we're going to append that number to our list called numbers. And then when we're done, when we're outside of this for loop, right? This for loop executes 5 times. And when we're done, it returns a list called numbers to the calling function, which is this function here. This function here is, it's where we're calling the function. And we said it returns numbers, so if we return something, we can trap that, capture that. We can grab a hold of what it returns. It returns a list. How do we know? Because this is a list, and we're returning it. And then we're going to print out the list. So let's do that. Let's run this. and I'm going to enter a number 5, 4, and 3, and 2, and a 1. And now it prints me my list. It took the numbers here 5 times because we passed 5 in. Let's do 3. 3, 6, 9. It looped 3 times because I typed in 3 here we passed 3 into the length parameter, and length is used here. So this is just an example that you can use a function to build a list and then return the list to the calling. Now what I was starting to do earlier, and I'll do it here just so you can see, I can do this. I can do this all in one step. I can print the list builder function, which passes in 3. It returns a value, doesn't it? Yeah, it returns a list. We already established that. Rather than storing that list in a temporary variable here, I can just put the output here, right? This function produces output, and by trapping or surrounding this function with the print statement, it's going to print the output of the function. What is the output? It's a list, right? Let's try it. 1, 2, and 3. It prints the list.